Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The third Laguna Hills Mutual Maintenance and Construction Committee meeting here. It's March 2nd, 1:30 PM here in the boardroom. So call it to order. Is there any media present? Okay. Approval of the agenda by consensus? Okay, moving right along. Approval of the meeting report from January 6th. Do I hear a motion to accept? Okay. Second? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Okay. No chair's remarks right now. Just talk about some things as we go through them. So member comments. Anybody member comments?
Yes, the first person to be called is Robert Stace.
The dais there is not lit up?
Thank you. I live in 23,
Oh, okay.
Robert Stace. I live in 2381 Via Mariposa West. My concern is the wash machines on the first and second floor. There was a leak on the second floor that flooded to the first floor from the wash machines. And so the solution was to take the linoleum out and put coating in the seal, which shouldn't solve anything. The machines are forever, constantly going out of balance, to the point that the residents are going to outside laundries. They're done with it. They're tired of it. They have to take, these old ladies have to take these soaking crap and lay it over their balconies to dry it so they can put it in the dryer because of the lousy wash machines. And it's constant that they do it. So also there's mold behind the soap dishes in them. It's a constant problem with Magtag. Magtag has been sued and knows about the problem. So it's getting to be really a nuisance. What happens, I'm on the third floor and our machine has the extra rinse. It never goes out of balance. The machines were put in 2011. Maytag says their life expectancy under commercial use is 8 years. We're saying it's 15. It's way beyond what they were built to do. The under residential use, 11 years at most. They also have a problem with their drums collecting water and bearings is a common problem for those machines. And Maytag is well aware of the problem. They have been sued. They have settled all across the country. So there needs to be something done to get the other machines in those two floors with the additional rinse, the heavier machine. It doesn't go out of balance.
You have two machines or three?
Three, one on each floor. The third floor is the extra wrench heavy-duty machine. The first and second floor are not.
Okay.
So they're having people come in to repair them. Like I said, these ladies have a lot of them are in walkers. And so it's difficult for them to handle soaking wet laundry. And otherwise they have to put it in the dryer and run it and run it and run it. So it needs to be repaired. They can't have a unit inside their washer and dryer inside their unit. So,
Okay.
what are they to do? So I really wish the board would look at it and take some serious consideration about removing those and putting the machine with the extra rinse. If you need it, I can give you the model numbers.
Okay.
So and I'll be happy to provide them. But they've all come to me. I'm sort of the co-captain, third remove. But mine is the first door they come to in the entire building. When anything breaks.
3 minutes are up. Thank
They have a
you.
computer trouble. Yes, sir.
Again?
Robert Stace, S-T-A-C-E. I'm in
2381B.
2381 West Mariposa West. I'm in 3H as an hotel.
Oh, 3H. Okay.
But I would appreciate your consideration getting this resolved.
Okay.
It's really a serious problem. So like I say, I've given them 3 or 4 laundromats to go to outside of the village
We're going to respond
to do their laundry.
after, we have to hear all the other comments first.
Okay.
Some feedback.
Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it.
That's the only member comment for
Oh,
item
okay.
number 6.
Okay, Robert, I'd like to know something here. As far as unbalanced loads coming to my attention, it's only been the last couple months where this has come up. So I'm wondering why this is such a new thing.
It happens all the time, and it's not that they're overloading them or putting too many towels in. They just go out of balance.
Huh.
So it's just a nightmare.
That happens
And
all
it's
the
the
time at our house. The
problem of the machine.
We got two pair of jeans and they get both on the same side.
Yeah.
And when, believe me, that washer's
So-
gonna bounce.
So Robert,
Yes,
you were pretty clear, but I want to confirm a couple of things. You said it was 2 out of the 3 floors that it's happening
yes,
all
sir.
the time?
The first and the second. The third is just fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then you were here, was it the board meeting or last time we had M&C, and you made the same essential comments, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so what I'd like to ask, if you're okay with it, Mr. Chair, is we have Velney kind of look into this particular unit, because we budget every year for some replacements of a few washers, and maybe we can accelerate the process. I mean, I thought it was always a mathematical equation. If the repairs are outweighing the cost of, a new one, we should
Correct.
use one of our, maybe it's time to reallocate is all I'm saying.
They're
This seems to be-
2011 machines.
This seems
so
to be an
they're 9
ongoing
years
problem.
old.
So do you have any thoughts on that we could jump
I
on it?
actually have Ian Barnett, which is the manager that handles that division here, and he can speak on the budget for replacements of washing machines.
Anyway, we'd like to see something done on this specifically to let you know where we're at. Do we
Yeah,
feel we
it's
can
really
repair
hard
it?
on these old
Or
ladies.
do we need to replace something? But we'll jump on this and get with you before the next meeting, certainly.
All right, thank
That's
you.
2 months from now. You'll hear something faster.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Ian, you got comments for us?
Yeah, so we do have a budget for replacements, but we look at the ones that are failing, the ones that are having rusting issues in the barrels or in the detergent slots, bearing issues where the bearings are going out, and these are typically ones that are prior to 2011. The ones here that we're talking about, more focused on these two, floors 1 and 2 at 2381, I believe is the
2381?
address.
Yes.
Yeah. So those ones don't have any major repairs on them in the way of bearings or rusting issues or anything like that. It's the number of repairs that are going out there. Our gentlemen are going out, they're putting their hands on the machine, and they're having to clear a code and reset it. And it's anywhere from oversetting, which is indicative of not utilizing the HE detergent and utilizing regular detergent. And also, like Director Frankel mentioned, where someone will put 2 pairs of jeans in, they get stuck on the same side, and now your machine is bouncing up and down like this. And that's where you're getting the out of balance load error. And those are really the main ones that we're dealing with over there.
Why aren't we experiencing it on the 3rd floor then?
I couldn't answer that question.
they the
for
same
you. It's,
machines?
No, they are different machines.
Oh, okay.
They are different machines. I couldn't tell you exactly what year the 3rd floor was installed, but it is the newer model machine.
How many times have you been out there for these 2 floors? How many visits have you made to do any sort of adjustments or repairs? Recently, in the last year, for example?
I would have to get back to you with that number. I don't have that on me right now.
Yeah.
What about the mold issue he mentions?
I'm sorry?
He mentioned a mold issue?
Mold.
The soap?
Behind the soap drawers, and on the first floor, one of the ladies there stopped using it because it's destroyed, the machines have destroyed some of her clothes. So she's,
I'm sorry, I'll have janitorial look into
Okay.
it. It's a cleaning issue.
Yeah, and get back to us as
Yes.
soon as you.
Yeah, can you take another pass at this whole setup and tell us, if it's something that needs education for the people there, then, Robert can consider that. I'd like him to kind of come back to us and say he got a satisfactory answer one way or another. And if we have to look at possibly delaying one new washer or appropriating more money based on whatever you find, then just let us know. But this can't keep going on like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll get back to
Okay,
you.
thank you.
But my hunch is that the newer machines are somewhat immune to this unbalanced system. It's the older machines that don't handle it well.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, let's move on to department head update, item 7. Villy?
I have
Nothing?
no, I have
Okay, on to consent.
How did we handle this? I have a couple questions.
Okay, we can remove it. We could just take all of them if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Why don't you make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to pull 8, 9, and 10 off the consent calendar for discussion.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor? All ready? Okay, let's go to item 8. Maintenance expenditures and variance explanations. I think probably all of us have some questions here, but go ahead, John, start first.
Yeah, I guess.
Hit your microphone though.
Okay. I am on agenda item 8, which I think is what we're working on, yeah. Page 3 of 6. And I look at this thing every time we meet, and I never quite understand it, so I'm hoping maybe you can clarify for me. Number 2, building structures. The first column after the name of what it is says under 10% variance year-to-date, which I assume would mean for all of 2019. It then shows a negative, a positive one, so I'm not sure what to read into that, $460,335. And it says the categories within normal budget variances. Well, the budget is 2 million something, so 10% would be 200 and something thousand, and we're at 460,000, so I don't see how we come up with 10%, number one. Number two, are we under budget here, or are we over budget here? Because it shows, I think, we're over budget on the breakdown, which is, I think, the page before.
Actually, under budget.
Oh, we're under budget? Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand.
200,000.
Okay, so why did it end up 460,000 per the variance report if we're 200,000 under budget?
It's on the current one.
That's the question, after all that babble. I guess let me B and C my question, so you can kind of look at it all at once.
December's, right? This is December's, and this is February's.
So I looked down,
Yeah.
let me give you all 3 of these, guys. Let me give you all 3 of these so you can see if there's something I'm missing here. On paving, number 16, 118,788 variance year-to-date, and it says it was a savings, and it shows negative 516,000 for December, which I don't know what that number means either. I can't quite figure out where that all comes from. It might have been a third one that had the same sort of, what do these mean? If it's in parentheses, are we under budget or over budget? I guess that's number one. And number two is, why aren't they tying into the actual budget since the year-end figures are what are being presented? End of question.
So what he's saying is that the year-to-date is under 10% because it's 7, right? But then this column is the year-to-date, which is this, and it doesn't show a 10% anywhere on it. It doesn't show a
Yeah,
percentage
it's,
anywhere
I
on
think
here.
it's a format.
Yeah,
It
it
is, it is a format. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's in parentheses, that means we spent over on this format of the variance. And maybe it is a formatting issue on the way it's set so that it's not as clear as whether we are over or under budget for the year to date.
I apologize. We recently redid this report to include Director Pearlstone's request for the operating fund. There might be an issue with one of the formulas moving over. It looks like that's the situation for item number 2. Typically, when there's a variance that's under 10%, it's so close that we don't provide an explanation. It's just normal business. With the item 16, I can check.
Don't move away from item 2. Are you saying that we should rely on the 200,000 variance on the page 1 of 5, which is the fund expenditures report, and ignore the 460 on the variance report, which sounds like it was a mathematical error? Is that the correct read?
Yes, I would primarily use this
Got it.
page, and I apologize, there's something wrong with the formula.
Say that, Delany? So I have a better explanation.
Yeah, because paving's no anywhere
So I
close
believe
to that.
the question, John, is like, so on the first column where it says under 10%, on the far right of page 1 of 6, it's 7% for building structures, which is why it says under 10% year-to-date, because that percentage is the year-to-date percentage.
And then in the next column over it where it says 460,000, that's solely for the month of December, not the entire year. So the current month budget minus the current month actual should be like the 460,000, because we were asked to report on two things, the monthly variance and the year-to-date variance. And that's why it's a little confusing, because the columns don't actually tell you that.
Okay, if I think I follow you, but that implies 460,000 was overspent or underspent? Because a minute ago I
Well,
was told that that's a favorable variance.
No, well, so it looks like the budget was 228 and we spent 688, right? Just for that month.
Yeah.
But that's because the budget is split unevenly, or 12 months, and so we don't know what month we're going to spend the most money in. And so that's why the month of December shows that it's over. But overall, we're not over budget for the year.
We're under.
We're only over budget for the month.
Correct.
Would you like us to change the format and only report on the month and not the year-to-date variances?
Or vice versa, the year
Well,
to
at the end of the
date.
year, we're more interested in
Correct,
that.
the year.
Well, so, I mean, in February, you're only going to get a two-month
2 month.
review.
Well, I think column headings would be a start.
Yeah.
And then maybe put the word over or under somewhere on the page. So
Well,
we
in
don't
the
have to
column, it says
do analysis.
year-to-date, and then it says December, which is the month. So we can actually put month and then year-to-date in top where the replacement fund is, if that'll make it easier. But each line says the month it is, or
Yeah, no,
it's
now that you've
year-to-date.
explained it, I mean, I understand it, I think. It makes more sense.
We
I'm gonna assume
we
I
can
did.
add column headings if you'd like for each page.
But let's jump down to paving and like, have a real world.
In terms of design of this, on page 1 of 6, I'm looking at this budget page, wouldn't it be easier just to put a variance after the current month? Like you have a variance after the year? Isn't that what?
Well, the key to this report is they're actually, darn it, the key to this report is they're actually providing an explanation of what the variance is, so where,
If it's under 10%, they're not providing.
right, where I thought you were going with that was just footnote below this report what the variances are, and you could
Yeah.
get that whole report.
Right. And then you could just put the few explanations that are necessary.
That would be an
with an
int-
asterisk.
Okay.
And put it
Up
on
to
the
you
single.
guys, but that sounds like a one pager would be
Yeah.
a lot
Okay.
easier to do that. But I'm back to being a pest, because I want to make sure I understand paving. So paving, which is under fund expenditures, I mean reserves, says that number 16, across the page, 118,000, am I reading that right? Right. And so you spent 516,000 on paving in December, is that reading that report correctly?
586.
I see 516.
That's the difference of what they were
Oh,
expecting.
oh, okay.
Right? So if they took their budget and divided into the 12 months, they were supposed to spend 70,547 every month,
I see.
but they ended up spending a bulk of it in December.
So this is useful information. So what we're being told is that there was money paid out of $500,000, just ballpark, for paving, and nearly another $500,000 for building structures. It was just actually paid, so it hit the financial statements. Okay, but the work wasn't necessarily done in December that relates to that. That's just when it was paid for. Is that correct?
Correct.
It could be both. It could have been done at the end of November and we didn't get the invoice and pay it until December. Or it could
Yeah.
have been done in early December and we didn't get the invoice and paid till the end
Right,
of
what
December.
triggers this whole line of questioning, Counselor, is the roofing. You know, there was this massive thing in, only 19,000, but there was all this money, we were told it was water intrusion, some of this stuff, but it looks like maybe building structures was part of water intrusion, the $500,000 that was billed for. What I guess I'm saying is it felt like some of the stuff, because I was meeting with finance to get ready for that meeting, and I guess what I'm asking is, some of this stuff feels like it happened way earlier in the year, and we're only paying for it in December, or only recognizing it in December. Does that sound at all possible?
There could be issues in regards to when the work was completed versus when the actual invoices is processed through accounting. And that could be staff checking and verifying, doing final inspections out in the field, or if there's any issues with any follow-up work that is mandated per the contract that the contractor didn't deliver. So the invoices would get held up for payment.
So one more, wasteline
Or the accruals.
remediation. as far as I understand it, that's done equally all year long. They're working on it all year long. It's what we've been told. And this looks like it was 116,000 over budget plus whatever the amount you're supposed to spend that month is, right? So it's probably more like 200,000 that was spent on that was,
For third, on waistlines, we did some 3-story buildings, and that takes 6 weeks to complete. So even though it's worked on for a month and a half to 2 months, then we get the final bill the third month later, after 30 days, net 30, and then it's paid. So
Right.
some
Well-
things can show up unevenly.
so I'm not so sure to finish this part of the discussion that we need to change the report too much, but because there's a lot of variance here. You could just leave it here. Maybe if you can clarify the columns a little bit, that'd be wonderful. But
Okay, well, sure
the
will.
big thing that we're interested in is knowing about this stuff before December. That's the problem, is we get all of it hits in December, and the whole discussion on budgets all year long almost becomes meaningless. So you guys need to find some way to give us some heads up, on when these things are going to hit. That's all I can say, because I have a hard time believing that all this work was done in December. I don't think it was. I think it just ended up being paid out or
Some of it could
recognized
have
in
been,
December.
yes, yeah. And then some are
Yeah.
the accruals. We get ready to close out the year, and we make sure our vendors
Yeah,
send us
wind
the
up-
invoices.
Okay, but you see my point. It's just
Yes,
we're
I
trying
do.
to get on top of this and
Yes.
see what you guys are doing, and we kind of got blindsided by all the stuff that hit in December. So things for you guys to talk about how to maybe, I don't even know if it needs to be a report, but maybe just some supplemental information saying, a lot of stuff hasn't hit yet. Whatever you can do to keep us in the loop.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have comments? I'd like to talk a little bit about line 22, page 2 of 6. It's the top one, appliance repairs. Can you tell us? It's appliance repairs, actual spent for the year is almost 131,000. We budgeted 85,000. I don't understand how we could be so far over, especially if nothing really applies to dryers.
22.
Right here,
Ian,
yeah.
appliance repairs?
That's what we were talking about earlier with those washing machines for the unbalanced loads.
Yes.
You have to pay for service even if there's nothing wrong with the machine, because we go out there and we clear the code, we go out there, or we
So you're charging
rinse
us
the
for
suds out.
each call?
Well, the residents have a call, we don't know if it's gonna be an actual repair or not, and so we send staff out there, which is billable time, and so you do have to pay for that, whether they actually repair the machine or not. So if a resident calls because they think water's left in there, but really it's just an unbalanced load because they might have washed a blanket or something, and it's gone now, we don't know, we just clear the code and the machine works perfectly.
How long have we been billed back for these calls?
You're always.
Forever, always.
Yes, you're always.
Every time a staff person goes out on a call, you're billed for it.
Okay,
But,
go ahead.
Yeah, to follow up to that, it's a lot of the unbalanced and oversuds is what we're running into.
Over
And-
suds?
Oversetting, right. And this is when the members are utilizing non-HE detergent, just regular standard detergent, and for these machines, it'll create a lot of suds. It'll fill the inside of the machine up with it, and it has sensors inside of it that are going to notice that, and it's going to pause it. And somebody has to come out and clear it and wash it out.
Okay, so all of this is being billed to appliance repairs?
Correct.
Okay, good. John.
What did you budget for that line item for 2020?
I would have to come back with that number for you. I do
Let me
not
know.
have that
Actually,
information
we
on me.
billed, actually, we budgeted a lot more because we had some washing machines that were definitely due for replacement this year. So we budgeted a lot more, not on repairs, but on the replacement side in the replacement column. So I think the repairs went down a little because we budgeted for, I think, 13 washers to be repaired or to be replaced in third. So the repairs might have went down. I can
Okay.
try to pull up the 2020 budget if you want me to know, or if you want to know.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That was the
maybe
theory
stop
behind.
the meeting for it.
Sorry. That was the theory behind while we were doing the budget this year for 2020, was increasing the number of replacements so that we could decrease the appliance repairs because it was getting out of hand.
What's the cost of a new washer, including installation to us?
Roughly $2,010, if I'm not mistaken.
Do we know the account number for appliance repairs? Anybody?
22?
That's just line 22.
No, that's, I'm talking
Oh, the
about
other
the
budget,
detailed
okay.
financial stuff. Well, I'll look it over. Okay.
Okay.
Could we actually talk about line 32 also, same page, page 2 of 6?
Plumbing services.
It's plumbing service. Now, why is it over 200,000 or 150,000?
Charge of services.
It seems like for the past 2 years, it's just been climbing.
So on page 6 of the budget variance explanations, there's line 32, unforeseen plumbing failures. So a lot of this is due to the condition of the pipes. It's what it really comes down to.
Is it blockages or what?
Blockages, which are stemming from calcified pipes. They're supposed to be 2 inches, and some of these are all the way down to 1 inch, and a couple we've seen all the way down to 3/4 of an inch of an opening, which, I mean, you can't fit anything through that. Nothing's going to make it through. And so we are in a constant fight against these to try to get in front of it, which is nearly impossible. We are out there constantly running a camera through different pipes, trying to find ways to get people out there to clean these faster so that we don't have moisture intrusion events that are caused by all of this stuff also. So we're trying to lower all of this in 2 ways, on the plumbing side and on the moisture intrusion side.
Okay, do you have a report that tells us what type of event took place that generated a call?
I
Or
believe
what
we
your
do-
people found out?
I believe we do have that.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you could supply it to us, that'd be great.
of course.
Okay. Okay, let's go on to item 9, please, project log. Donna, you want to walk us through anything that you have there? Is it update?
It's updated as of February, but staff is in the process of updating it for the following month. If there's anything in particular you want to discuss, we can definitely discuss that, or if anything that you want further details on. Keep in mind that as far as the expenditures are documented, it is based on what staff has recorded that they have processed as the expenditures hasn't been released when we updated this.
Okay, item 11 on page 3 of 6, exterior paint program.
Yes.
The last comment there starts out by saying lead abatement activities. Is there really that much in there of lead abatement?
In Third Mutual, especially on 3-story buildings, all the wrought iron railing are considered positive for lead. So anytime that staff is working on prepping the building to receive new paint, they have to prepare the building in such a fashion that follows the EPA regulations in regards to protecting the environment. So we prepare the building to, by plasticking the area, staff is uniformed up to protect their health as well. Everything is prepped in regards to the surface of it is, and then gathered and collected, and then disposed of appropriately in order to stay within regulations.
So somewhere along the line, we've just decided to consider all of them.
No, it's all tested.
Oh, it is?
Before staff arrives on a
Okay.
building, we actually identify what is positive and
Okay.
what is negative and work accordingly.
Okay, John?
So this will be the third time we've asked this question between Steve and myself. Street light, number 28, streetlight LED conversion project. do not see that on the fund expenditures report unless I'm missing it or it's labeled under something else. So I'm confused. How it can be on the project log and not in our budget?
Because
It's exterior
it's a
lighting.
219 budget.
Well, I understand
Right
that,
here,
but
right here. Exterior lighting,
exterior light, is that covered?
Number 5.
Is the amount correct?
yeah, 800.
December 31st, I'm talking about going into this year. I don't know, okay, so as long as it's in this year, that's fine. The next
Yeah.
question, unrelated, I just thought maybe there was something I was missing. It sounds like maybe that base is covered. 740,000, have we confirmed, is that gonna be enough to cover the project? Because we keep, the number 800,000 kept getting thrown around, and 50,000 got spent last year. I'm assuming for trials and whatever else went on, so have we confirmed that 740 gets us done, or is there gonna be somebody showing up saying we need more money to get it completed?
I have to look.
Let me look into that, and I'll get you an answer in just a moment.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't know about that other thing. That's what you were gonna ask me.
John, I was under the impression that Siemens, the lighting company, had agreed to hold the price if we had agreed to the contract last year, and when we did, so the price was a fixed price.
And that's my understanding also. I just want to confirm, because now it's sitting in there at 740 and the original bid was 800. I want to make sure that it's all going to be finished.
Now, part of that were the tests, the 2 tests.
Right, that should have been,
Yeah.
just verifying.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the project log? Oh, one thing that we had talked about, and let's use wasteland remediation. What is the projected end date? Like 7 years from now, or what? At one time, Ernesto had an end date projected.
That was true for dry rot also.
In dry rot, we were trying to figure out when we're, based on current schedule and 30-year plan.
You have one for Wasteland? Okay.
Okay, anyway, in the future, on these big heavy hitters, if we can put a projected end date,
On the dry rot, there would probably be no end date, as dry rot is tied to the exterior paint program. Your cycle is on a 10-year cycle. Staff, in preparation to receive paint, will go out and determine if there's wood rot, fungus, or deterioration of all of your exterior wood structure beams, whether it's fascia boards, beam siding, and all of that will get replaced. It is not repaired, it's not patched, it's replaced, and that is part of your exterior paint program in
Yeah.
conjunction.
well, in initially talking to Ernesto when he came, he said, okay, this time period is gonna be the heaviest, because it hasn't been done in the past. Okay, after this, it'll probably go down some. So if we can find when that estimated downtime is, where it turns down,
Tack on to that.
yeah.
Yeah, our question, putting it in very budget-specific terms, is project number 3, a dry rot program that's got us budgeted for $1 million a year that appears to be being spent every year. So if you feel like everything is now, and we're hoping this is true, if it's now all tied into the, prior to paint program, then let's do an analysis of what numbers needed for prior to paint to, incorporate dry rot and end this, add-on dry rot program that was designed to play catch-up on buildings that were like, I've heard stories, staircases were falling down, and, if we've got that under control, then that's exactly the question we're asking is, can we get rid of this line item, ideally, if not this year, for 2021, and just do prior to paint for the projected budget?
In regards to the dry rot program, and particularly for this year, and as we go into the following years as Gate 14, where we have a lot of 3-story buildings, a lot of the focus on these dry rot programs are your Garden Villa breezeway beams. Those are extremely expensive, and those goes into the framing of the walls, which then also deteriorates. You also have balconies where you have wrought iron railings that are embedded into the legs that are still embedded, that's causing
Okay.
dry rot.
So is any of the following garden villas, 2384, 2385, 86, 87, or 88, are those garden villa buildings?
They are.
So we're in the middle, so we should be able to do a projection on when the garden villas will be done. And that's exactly what we're interested in, is to know when this big catch-up stuff is ending.
Well, Ernesto had told us that based on
Right.
current funding, he could only do 5 or 6 of these a year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we should be able to
For
project
waste lining, you're
out.
talking waste lining?
No.
No,
Dry
dry,
rot.
hopefully you can see our
Dry
point.
rot.
There's a
Dry
separate
rot.
line item. There
Yeah.
must be a reason for it, and there must be a project associated with it. And we just don't want to leave a random $1 million out there for dry rot that might pop up, might not. We'd like to clarify exactly what's going
The $1
on.
million was allocated when the third board asked us to get our consultant involved, and they did a survey of all of the building types, and so they took 25 or something building models and looked at it for dry rot and estimated that that dry rot will be in all of those building models maybe, and tried to, see you can throw money at it and to get the dry rot down. So that's what we're doing. We're just starting with some buildings.
I've seen that report. How many years ago was that? Do you recall?
Yeah, that was just last
Oh,
year, or
yeah.
late in 2018, something like that. It was
So
really
we just,
recent.
did we just
So you
establish a dry rot budget line item in 2000? That's not true. It was.
No,
Well, it was like 500,000 for third, and
We
then
were
you
into
guys
it,
upped
but
it
then they
to
brought
$1
it in
million. Yeah, something
help.
like that. So,
We'd like something quantified. I don't know how else to phrase it.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't want to guess.
do you want me to send you the staff report that was associated with that?
No, because as I remembered, it was incredibly inconclusive. It was just like there's dry rot everywhere, and we can't quantify how much there's going
Well,
to be.
it was because some, would get more sun on the west side of the building and not the other, so one might be more prone to dry rot than the other side of the building,
Right,
so
but
it
if
is.
we're, but if we're no longer researching, this is really the bottom line, if we're no longer researching additional dry rot, and it doesn't sound like we're there yet, it sounds like the Garden Villas have additional dry rot that has very little to do with prior to paint. And it would be nice to get a clear understanding of how many of those, or what level of work is involved where buildings, maybe just limit it to 3-story buildings, how many of those still have to be done? And we can understand how long this line item needs to exist while those buildings are done, and then phase this into prior to paint, which is gonna be forever, and we get that. And then have this thing managed under one, line item. I think that's what we're hoping for.
Just keep in mind that on the dry rot program, although that it is focused on 3-story buildings currently, you have a variety of buildings where dry rot
sure.
would be different, such as 811, where the
I
patio
totally
walls-
understand, but am I missing something? The prior to paint includes dry rot funding.
It does.
So we're gonna hit that every time you go to paint a building, and it's already
Yes.
budgeted.
But prior to paint work is in preparation for the building to be painted. It does not include a full wall being built. It doesn't include a full balcony being rebuilt on 25 of your garden villas that has 24 balcony decks each. So dry rot does cover, as far as prior to paint does cover fascia boards and gutter repairs and architectural features, but it does not include full-blown structural repairs that would be included into your dry rot program that is normally done by an outside
I
vendor.
like the beams.
I have two
Correct.
questions.
Yeah.
One, how does this dovetail with now the new law related to balconies? And the dry rot related to the balcony issue? Because I see these
Yeah.
two as kind of
Yeah, it's
coming
gonna be in
together.
there somewhere.
The M&C staff has started to meet and plan in regards to meeting the new deadline of January 1st of 2025, and it will be proposed in the 2021 budget, as it will take a program in order to handle all the inspections by a structural or an architectural
Right.
engineer.
I just
Of all
was
your
wondering, because
balcony
this has, there's
Correct.
clearly a relation, in my opinion, a relationship between the two. I have a second question on the lead abatement issue. If we are painting the buildings every 10 years, and we're probably now, since we started that program, close to we're about the halfway point. We should be done with the lead abatement issue then in when we finish the first full cycle of the
I thought
10-year
it was separate.
paint, right? Because we're not replacing lead with lead paint.
So all the building in Third has been tested for lead. Staff knows exactly where the lead-based paint is on all of the exterior of your building. When staff works on a building to prepare it for paint, they are not abating lead. We are not a certified abatement contractor. Staff does RRP work, which is actually in preparation for paint, is all they can and are allowed to do based on their certification. They are preparing the surface for receiving of paint. They are not removing or stripping the paint to remove all the lead that's in it.
So this is a permanent, ongoing problem?
It is.
Is what you're telling me?
Correct. To
Unless we
remove-
get involved in the lead
The-
abatement
no,
issue.
sorry.
So your statement here, lead abatement activities, they're not really abatement then?
Not, unless staff does, unless there's work that requires, let's say, replacing of a rail. In order for us to replace a rail, the abatement of the lead has to happen because we are saw cutting and welding that rail. So that does require abatement. But if we are just doing application of paint, it is just what we call renovate, repair, and paint process, and that's all we do.
So you foresee this then as a permanent ongoing problem?
It is. In preparing the building where there's lead been identified, unless we have replaced the component with new
Gotcha.
metal.
Thank you.
John wasn't here when we did when we hired the consultant to do the dry rot program, and so perhaps I could give you a minute explanation of what happened. And that is that he did look at, the consultant did look at 20 or 25 buildings and came to the conclusion that he could not draw a projection because it just didn't lend itself to projecting over the entire population of our buildings. And so now we're simply tying it to the inspection associated with prior to paint. We cannot make a projection.
Now, what they thought by facing the sun or not facing the sun or north or south didn't hold up. The same building didn't hold up. One place they would find some, another one they would find nothing. So, yeah, Doug.
You know, I live relatively close to several of these pear pot places and everything else. And when I look at the line 4, if I provide the number into that, that's $50,000 for each unit. And we see some of these places when they're under the correctiveness and everything else, it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. The dry rot is seen and everything else. Some of them go quicker, but what happens with the excess if one of these is $75,000 instead of unallocated to that? That's $75,000 or $25,000 more. Maybe it comes into this dry rot situation, and I hear dry rot, dry rot, dry rot, and then there's roof situations and everything else. My concern just is, where's the extra money coming for? Is it allocated on a basis of the 5 or whatever? I don't.
Are you taking out of one line item and putting it in another?
If there's dry rot that's not associated with the parapet wall removal work to building structures. I didn't say that.
So if there's, during the parapet wall removal, if there's dry rot found that's not necessarily associated to the parapet wall project, then that dry rot is fixed and repaired, but the funding comes from the building structures budget.
Okay.
Or I don't know if it also, it's either building structures or the dry rot program budget.
Okay. Can we go on to line item 20 perhaps?
I'm sorry, John, I did look up the staff report for the streetlights, and it looks like when we took it to the board, the project is fully funded in the amount of $745,000 from the exterior lighting replacement fund. Maybe they got Siemens to come down $5,000, and that's why it's only $740 on here, but that is the total cost for the LED conversion.
Okay, great.
Okay. Can you tell us what's happening on line 20, emergency roof repair program? I know Ernesto said that there was a bunch of stuff he had to take care of.
I'm not mis-
That's separate than the,
I guess a better question is, have we pre-identified roofs that we haven't done yet? They're going to have to be done out of a cycle?
The roofs are inspected prior to each budget season, so you budget for the roofs that need to be done for the 2020 budget. Emergency repairs are when a moisture intrusion event occurs during a rain event, and we didn't, that building wasn't necessarily inspected because it wasn't on the 5 or 10-year inspection cycle, and it needs emergency repairs.
Okay.
So it's a
Okay.
contingency for emergencies.
Does it tie into the reserve account or the operating funds? Is it part of the roof replacements budget within the reserve accounts? Is that where I would see that?
It's 20.
Because there's nothing that I see that ties into it exactly, but I've been missing stuff all day, so maybe I'm wrong.
No, then it's under operating.
Let me see.
Yeah. Page 1 of 6, line item 17.
Yes, it is in operating.
It's operating.
It's under operating?
Yes.
Yes.
So
because
is that
it's-
miscellaneous repairs by outside service? Is that the line item that would qualify under? Because I don't see roof repair under operating
I
either.
don't either.
It's there.
It is there. Let me see. On the expenditure reports?
Under operating, does that come under outside services?
That's what I thought, but the budget's too low.
Yeah, that would be awfully low.
Oh, well, they added it for the 2020 budget expenditure report. There's a roof repair line item. They might have,
It might have
They
been under a
separated
different
it.
category in 2019.
it said, lines, let's see, 18. Oh, you know what? It was operating, but you moved it to reserves in 2019. So it is in the reserve
Do you remember doing that?
category.
There were a few things that happened, yeah.
Yeah, emergency roof repairs was moved
Okay,
in 2019.
To which? To roof
From
replacements?
operating to, it's under roofs, it's under the roofs category. So we have roof replacement, roof maintenance, preventative roof maintenance, emergency roof repair, all under the roofing line
Yeah.
item.
All right, so
okay.
maybe the January financial statements
Yeah,
will
it'll be
help
broken
on
out.
this. All right.
Yeah.
okay.
Which I happen to have, so. Go on.
Okay, we ready to move on to our programs report? Number 10? Gonna walk us through that? Page 1 of 2 on item 10.
Chris?
Good afternoon. We previously received feedback that you were not satisfied with the format of the paint and prior to paint reports. We changed it around to make it a little bit more visually appealing, a little bit more information, and a little bit simpler to read. One of the things you may notice is on the prior to paint, there's a 3% variance, and then on paint, there's a negative 1% variance. It would be almost impossible to get this any better in line with the budget. It's, yeah. Not sure if you guys really need reports on this, but I'm happy to make them whenever you want. It's just a really well-run program. You can kind of see with the pie chart about how we're allocating the expenses. This will make a little bit more sense as we're halfway through, March, April. Then you'll kind of see, oh, you've used half your budget, you've used 75%. So.
I would, can I speak here? I would love to see this every 6 months, or at least a mid-year update.
So we could definitely do it, I believe, every 3 months.
Yeah, we do a quarterly forecast, but this, just to kind of see what's coming and what's done, this is tremendous.
Yeah,
Sure.
it is good.
I've never seen it before. Did you have anything, you said this, you've improved this. Well, was there a prior version of this?
Well, we had a prior version. I believe you specifically were the one.
I
who
was the
didn't like
guy?
it.
It's one of those days, folks.
And it was, we have quite a few reports that are in the analyst's computer that were created 6 or 7 analysts ago. And it's to the point where we're going to make them all look nice.
So how often did I want to see it last time? So am I still like very close?
I think it was quarterly.
I'm happy quarterly 6 months, but I definitely, that would help with the problem we had discussed earlier. We know what's coming
Absolutely.
So
mid-year.
by consensus, the staff directed to only publish the programs report every 6 months for your third M&T? And you need a
Great.
consensus?
Beautiful.
Are we good?
Sure.
For me.
Okay.
John, in connection with what I said before, this is a relatively new concept. In other words, we came to the conclusion that since we cannot get information from the consultant, we've got to develop in-house our dry rot repair projections. And so that's where this is an outgrowth of that requirement.
Very good.
Good. Okay, any other comments about this, item 10?
It's good. Well done.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 11, painting of building 2129. Okay, Who on staff's going to walk us through that?
Okay. Let me summarize the
I
report.
will call you. I will
Yeah,
call
well,
you.
let's get an overview first here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Truthful overview.
okay.
Staff's recommendations to deny the request from Mr. Clive Gerwitz, owner of Manor 2129D, to have Building 2129 painted ahead of schedule, which would modify the existing third Laguna Hills Mutual exterior paint program. To give a background, on July 21st, 2015, the Board of Directors reviewed various potential paint program scenarios in the intent to, of course, optimize the ability to address existing and minimize future structural problems such as dry rot.
Okay, just a sec. Okay, I think everybody's read through it.
Okay, perfect.
But just, if you can hit the highlights, like, when was the last painted?
It was on the trim cycle as part of,
No, when was the first?
2006, let's be honest.
The actual building? When
the
was it?
building was painted in 2006.
2006.
Full paint cycle.
Okay,
Remember this one, this is, got skipped because we changed paint cycles
Correct.
midstream, and then there was an inspection that said it didn't need it.
It wasn't skipped, it was painted as as the design of the,
It was not.
sir, sir,
Really, easy, we'll
it
get
was
there.
painted as part of the mutual's design, which was the trim cycle.
Yeah.
Based on that program.
okay.
So what got painted and what didn't and when? The 2006, the whole building got
The
painted?
2006, the whole building was painted. In 2016, only the trim was painted. Everything in regards to the wood structures, the wood components on the building was all dry rotted and repaired, and the mutual's paint crews painted the trim. The building or the body of structure and stucco was passed at that point following the mutual's resolution to modify the paint program.
Okay. So the stucco was inspected and found to be in good repair?
When Mr. Gerwitz came up and requested the building to be painted, staff did go out on 2 separate occasions. The building is in great condition.
It's not even-
We have pictures.
Okay, any other questions from panel? Okay, would you like to come up and address?
My name's Clive Gerwitz, 2129D, and my wife Martha Gerwitz here, and also my neighbor Rodden Davis.
I'll call you one at a time. You get 3 minutes
We're
to
all
speak.
together.
Martha, no,
You
but
get
one at a time.
one time, 3 minutes each. Please speak.
Okay. I want to mention Rodden is a veteran like myself. He's 93 years old. He's been a resident of Laguna Woods for almost 25 years. He's also going to address this. One of the pictures, we took pictures yesterday. The pictures that staff took are misleading. You didn't show all the pictures, except for the last picture. You'll see the appalling condition of the outside of the stucco. First of all, this recommendation that staff is saying to deny my request is, first of all, is invalid, because I never requested to move 5 years ahead of schedule. We are 5 years behind schedule. And 2006 was the last time the exterior was painted, and that's what we're talking about. And stop bringing up trim and all the other stuff, because you're talking about the exterior paint. It's a misstatement of facts. Now, I've got 4 points I want to make, and I'll make them as quickly as I can. First, this is the third time I'm appearing before this committee. First in September, then in November, and today. And the last appearance in November, you requested the staff to review the matter again. I never received zero communication from November from the staff or this committee about my request. I made numerous phone calls on December 10th to try to find out what the latest status of this was. I was trying to contact Valney. I was told by Property Services that she doesn't accept calls from members. And I was changing around to different members, different people who took messages. I finally got a voicemail from Laurie telling me that there was a recommendation that we made at the January 6th staff meeting. It didn't tell me it was for it, against it, nothing. I attempted numerous times to try to reach Laurie. Left me her number, but you can't reach any of these people. They are just impossible to reach. I received my first response on January 7th from Laurie. That's after your board meeting, by email, that the committee had approved my request to delay my appeal because I was out of the country at the time. And I would think that any reasonable person would agree that this committee and staff has shown a total lack of transparency and it has a dismal communication procedure, at least as far as we're concerned. Third point, I did receive response dated 12/19 from a Mr. John Reed, Inspector Number 2 of the Alterations Department and a corrections notice. And the corrections notice stated that during the routine inspection of the alteration, there was an issue of the repainting of the patio cover. No further information. I immediately called Mr. Reed and asked him what it is about. He told me he received an instruction to issue the complaint or correction notice, and furthermore, he had not personally inspected the property. He was merely following orders, but he did send me a photo of the issue. I explained to Mr. Reed that I'm waiting for a response to the repainting of the manor, and we're happy to touch up the paint once we resolve the painting request. I'd like to use my wife's time to finish this. Okay, Mr. Reed said he would notate the file and gave me to understand this could be completed once the manor painting issue had been resolved. I received a follow-up letter dated February 19th from Michelle Vienne demanding corrective action on or before February 29th. So for a minor little detail, I'm getting corrective notices and follow-up communications. But on my request on this issue, and the misstatement of facts are not. Now, some people will believe this is a trivial complaint, which is not visible to anyone. This complaint that I'm talking about in my manor. And some people feel that this is a form of harassment because the numerous phone calls are made. And some people even believe that this is elder abuse and intimidation since I am a senior. Or could just be a coincidence that this complaint came in. So whether you believe it's a coincidence and was discovered during a routine inspection, which is nonsense, there's no routine inspection, or a form of elder abuse and intimidation, I don't have an opinion on that. Staff has stated that I want our manor painted 5 years ahead of schedule. That is a flagrant misstating of facts. You're 5 years behind schedule. And I want to ask every committee member, how many of you are on a 20-year paint cycle for your exterior manor? None of you. Okay, all we're asking is that this should be painted just in accordance with the policies and procedures. And the policies and procedures, which Valney confirmed to me, is that every 10 years you paint the exterior of the manors. You don't even do an inspection to see which ones are worthy of paint and which ones aren't. You automatically paint. Okay, I have pictures here which I will happy to pass on to you, and here's my request. It's my understanding that stucco stains may be cleaned. However, staining can also indicate invisible problems to untrained eye. Stucco staining may also indicate severe problems with the stucco, including water damage and mold. It's also my understanding that roof cap flashing can grow mold. Therefore, 1, I'm requesting a qualified stucco consultant with a California license of C35 to observe, evaluate, and make remediation recommendations due to stucco staining. 2, I'm requesting an environmental hygienist to evaluate the roof cap flashing and stucco to ensure there's no mold growth. 3, I'm requesting a licensed painting contractor with a California license C33 to observe, evaluate, and make recommendations regarding the status of the current painting condition. I'm also requesting I be present or a designated representative be present when these inspections are conducted. Now, I'm going to leave copies of the pictures that we took yesterday, which are a much more truer picture of what the status here is, and a copy of a formal request here, and I'm going to. I'd rather give it to, I'm not too happy with staff. Thank you. And I would appreciate next time if you put us on the agenda, be kind enough to be put on the agenda a little further up ahead. I am a CPA, I'm still working, taking time out of my busy schedule at this time of year. And I appreciate the budget issues, but they don't concern a lot of us in the detailed issues. Thank you.
Sir, we handle it by a certain format.
We do have one more speaker on this item.
Okay?
Roland Davis.
Okay. Hi, I'm sort of a backup for Mr. Gurwitz here because I live in the same building. 2129B. My thoughts about it is that the the building is stained with a mixture of accumulated dust and dirt from the freeway, and it soaks into the unpainted stucco. If it was painted, it wouldn't stain up, probably. The stains really spoil the looks of the building. I was looking at it the other day and I thought, well, okay, I'm 93. If I'm probably going to want to sell the building, or my wife, if I'm dead, we'll probably want to sell our condo. And I think if it's got that stain on it, say 2 or 3 years from now, or however long I live, it'll give us a lower price, of course, you know, or it won't have that curb appeal we used to talk about. We don't have curbs, but we have a walkway, I guess. But anyway, so I guess that's all. I'd like to see it painted or looking better. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the speakers we have on this item.
Okay. It looks like in the picture that there is some stain, possibly mold. And I believe, Robert, you went out and looked at it?
Yes, I went out yesterday afternoon about 5 o'clock and walked around the building to see for myself exactly what there was. And I think the pictures that Mr. Gurwitz has presented are representative of the way I saw the buildings as well. And I'm wondering, I understand about your request that you're 5 years behind the paint cycle. I'm wondering if a power washing might have a positive impact in terms of cleaning up a lot of that dirt that's on the building. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a paint specialist, but I'm just wondering, from when I looked at it, if a power washing would help and address some of those issues. It might be a way to resolve the problem.
Can you even power wash one of those?
We can, but it would have to come out of a budget somewhere.
No, we understand that, but how do you deal with the condition of it?
The building would be cleaned of all grime or dust or buildup that has received, especially to smog or trees or sap that has caused staining on either the fascia boards or the stucco.
And what would the cost of that be for a building of that size?
I'd have to get staff to provide an
Because
estimate.
I'd like to know how much that's going to
Yeah.
cost compared to what the painting might cost.
I know what the painting would cost.
I just want to address that. When they changed this program in 2016, when the painters came and pressure cleaned the building, I spoke to the painting contractors and the foreman there, and they at that time said the pressure cleaning was going to be a waste of time. But they were following their orders and they had to do what they were told to do. But from a professional point of view, it's something you do before the paint job, but it doesn't take place of paint. And the third board actually changed this policy. So the reason they changed this policy is it wasn't working. So you want a pressure cleaner now and still make us wait 5 years. And frankly, in terms of the budget, I saw the number you quoted for painting, I think $17,000. And I know that there's lots of items that go above and under and above. But in terms of the multi-million-dollar budget we have, that shouldn't be the basis of this decision of this board, that this shouldn't be painted because you have a budget that it hasn't been budgeted in the cycle right now. It has been budgeted. It was budgeted before. We all pay our association dues, and it's part of the budget.
Okay, John?
From my limited experience, and help me out here, the pressure cleaning usually requires repainting once it's done, doesn't it? Usually, that's usually powerful stuff that impact, it's usually what's done on fences and walls and stuff before you repaint them, isn't it?
We do power wash prior to every painting, but it also determines on the pressure gauge of the water that goes onto the building, whether it is designed to blow out something or just to clean a surface. And we normally do not power wash to wash a building of grime and sap and
Right.
dirt, because you can see that the request would then continually come in, especially for buildings with lighter colors.
Is it staff's contention that none of the dirt that was shown on these pictures, that was a little more illustrative than the ones that were in our report, none of that represents mold or a potential problem that needs to be remedied sooner rather than later? Has that been studied?
That is staff's recommendation, that this is dirt and grime buildup on the exterior of the building. Exterior to your building, in the environment, there is mold everywhere.
Of course, I meant just as it building up, you know, I think you know what I meant.
Another question. I understand Mr. Gurwich's claim about it being 5 years behind in terms of the cycle. When Third Mutual made the decision in 2016 to go to the 10-year cycle, how many other buildings are in the same situation as this building?
Good question.
Lori's gonna look that up.
I want to make a comment about the communication. We talk a lot about trying to make sure, you know, that we're responsive to resident requests, and I know you've been here 3 times. I really respect what you're going through, but speaking for the committee, I don't think any of us have heard from you at all, other than at these meetings, and it sounds like you're constantly trying to get response from staff. Saying it on a proactive basis, you should let one of us know, and we'll make sure you get a response if this goes any further than today. Unless I'm wrong and you have contacted board members, but I'm not aware of it, and I certainly would want to represent you if you were feeling like you were not getting timely response from
I
staff.
can't really hear you.
I'm talking to
To him.
Mr. Gurwitz. Just so you know, I mean, we want to hear these sorts of things, and, you know, if staff can get back to you, we'll help accelerate that. But to blame them and say you've contacted them 10 times doesn't let us do our role of trying to help out when you run into those sorts of problems.
Well, I appreciate that. I thought that the way to communicate with the board was through staff.
It's exactly the opposite.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so my question is, how do we even get your telephone numbers or contact information? Because it seems like that is kind of withheld.
Oh, no, we all have cards, and we're readily available for
I'd be
this.
happy to take them.
Yeah, all right, and I'm happy to give it to you.
Yeah, you can call the GM's office and tell them you want somebody on our board to call you back.
Right.
And the GM's office is which number do you call? Because,
It's in the emergency number list that you have.
okay,
Well, given where we are, I'm just going to give you my card if I have one handy, and we can just skip that whole step.
okay, I appreciate that.
The manor has an iron gate to the front patio. And have you ever seen the bars in a prison cell, you know, how the paint's chipped off? That's the way it gets, or is now. But I'm not above taking a can of black spray paint and doing it, you know. But I'm telling you, the painting needs to be done on schedule, I think. Just a gate might be an example of, you know, how.
Okay. A question on that, isn't that an alteration from the original build-out? Because mine is. It's my
No,
responsibility.
not on this model.
Okay. Can I ask a
That was
related,
actually built into it?
I have a related question, it's kind of for both, which is if we would approve some version of this and get this repainted, does it go on the 10-year paint cycle from the date of repainting, or are you implying that we would do it now and again in 5 years?
No, 10-year cycle. I don't expect you to paint it. I mean, if you're going to paint it, it's going to be good for 10 years. It's like anybody
We just need to know their procedure here.
Right.
It
No,
would-
I did ask, fair enough.
It would throw that particular building in that cul-de-sac off of everybody else's schedule that's in that cul-de-sac. So for us, we would have to mobilize to paint his particular building out of queue or out of cycle.
And then you come back at 2026.
To paint everybody around him.
Everybody around it. Okay, okay.
We need to know that. John?
Oh,
You know what, I just want to mention that, but the same token is, in 2026, we're going to be out of the cul-de-sac painting cycle. It doesn't make sense, that answer she just gave you. It's really in contradiction.
No, right now you are in the 26 cycle.
But the buildings around us, if they all went through the same cycle and missed their paint cycle, they should all be painted at the same time. They're all going to be painted 10 years later. So we all get in the same thing. It's not like our building's particular and suddenly we're going to throw everybody off cycle.
Well, we don't know whether the rest of them in the cul-de-sac were missed when we went to this.
Well, if
Did
they
you happen
were-
to find
they
out
weren't
anything?
missed, then we
out of cycle.
Okay,
Doesn't
just a
matter
minute.
when you paint this, we're gonna be out of cycle.
The trim cycle took place in 2015 and 2016, so it's been approximately 160 buildings that received trim cycle painting. So I can read you the cul-de-sacs or the building numbers, there's a lot of them. And generally, you know, his wasn't the only building in his cul-de-sac, so everyone in his cul-de-sac got the same trim cycle.
So everybody missed
Yes,
the
well-
16 cycle for
Yes.
paint.
Well,
A
let me-
full painting.
Let me ask the question a little differently. If there are 160 buildings that got the trim treatment, that means, at least from what I'm hearing, that means we don't paint 160 buildings in a single year.
No, that's 2 years of painting.
So that's 2 years of
15 and
painting. So
16.
so what you're telling me is that there were 160 buildings that in that 2-year time period that are now, I'll assume, if we assume 2006 for 80 of those buildings, and then let's even give the benefit out 2007 for the others. So really, you've got 160 buildings that are waiting between 20 and, waiting 20 years to be painted.
That's correct. Well, at least the full paint.
Just a second, for the full paint cycle, you're looking at 160 buildings are waiting 20 years, if that's what I'm hearing.
So some
What's that?
buildings, you know, aren't all stucco. Some buildings have more wood on them, and that's part of the trim cycle. Any wood component of the building, even though we're saying the word trim, any wood component received painting. So if a building is fully wood, then it all got painted.
Can you tell me
So,
how many of the?
I cannot from this list, because I don't know.
I'm trying to understand how many are waiting 20 years
Well,
to be
you can,
painted.
you know,
Whether, if they're all wood and they've been painted, then they're not waiting 20 years.
that's right.
So what I want to know is, how many of the buildings are waiting 20 years to be painted?
I can't tell you that without a lot of research into each building, model style, and what the components are. But, you know, you can say more than half of that. I mean, at least 3/4 of that number then still need to be painted, quite
So
a few.
120 are out of
At least.
cycle,
Roughly.
20 years. And the estimate is $19,000 for the,
Well, this is a 4-unit building,
for the
so
4-unit building.
this particular building.
for this model, yeah, it varies. So whatever the paint cost was in 2006, you know, that's what we're going to need to paint all of those buildings again, but plus inflation because of the cost of paint and labor has gone up. But what your budget was in 2006 and 2005, you know, that's a lot of money to go back. And that's why the board decided to just start over from a certain point, starting with a full 10-year paint program again.
I just want to question some of the math and some of the figures they throw out here. This program was started in sometime in the middle of 2015, and it disbanded sometime in the middle of 2016. So it wasn't 2 full years. So you're saying there are 80 buildings painted a year, or 80 buildings, or you're saying there were 160 buildings painted in that maybe a year time period?
Well, I can count all the buildings individually, and I'm opening up the color selection notices from, you know, a certain time of month to the end and seeing if it was on the trim cycle or the full paint cycle, and I was counting from there.
So they
Some
painted
buildings-
160 buildings in 1 year.
No,
Basically what
no,
you're saying.
2 years.
Well, this wasn't a 2-year program.
It was close.
I'm gonna jump in, Mr. Gervitz. I'm just gonna say, unless we're trying to analyze, if it's an all or nothing question, should we paint them all or should we paint none? Then let's not get too far in the weeds on what's going on with the number of buildings. We really want to focus on yours. You've been persistent about this issue, and no one else has showed up. We don't have anybody else waiting in line saying their building needs paint out of this group that got skipped. So that's kind of meaningful, but you've walked in and brought real pictures of real issues with your building, and I think we should be, for your benefit, I think we should be focused on that.
John?
I'm not sure exactly what the motion should be, but let me say this. The boards face these kinds of problems, and the architectural committee will go out and do a site visit. The same happens in landscape, and the board goes out and looks at the site on tree removals and things like that. And so my recommendation would be, and I'm not making the motion, that we take the matter under advisement and as a board, go out, look at the site, meet with staff, and discuss the alternatives, and then make our recommendation, or then make our motion.
You talking about the board or the architectural committee?
Yes.
Architectural or us?
No, I'm
Which one?
saying,
That's
we,
That's what I heard.
We as
the
MC,
architectural committee goes out and looks at the problems. We have an M&C problem, we should go out and
oh,
look
I
at
see,
it.
so you're saying our board, this group right here
This
right
group should go out and look at it, and
Okay.
take the matter under advisement, and then have a technical discussion with staff, including Guy.
now. Well, I'm not against that, but we have somebody who did it. And I would love to just, what's your instinctive reaction? This is just more information for digestion here. Did it look like a building in disrepair? Or did it look similar to the other buildings floating around and the other ones you see in the community?
All right. I went out yesterday at 5 o'clock. It was drizzling. But I walked out there and I found the building and I walked all around the whole cul-de-sac and looked at the buildings around the cul-de-sac. This building is dirty. There's no question. That's why I asked about the question of power washing, because I didn't know if power washing would address the issue. It didn't appear that the stucco was damaged or pieces falling off or anything of that nature. I didn't look closely at the gates, I'll acknowledge that, but I did walk around the whole building. And it's dirty. It's quite dirty. It's dirtier than a lot of other buildings, but it's also lighter in color than a lot of the other buildings. So when you see some of the other buildings that are darker, they may also be somewhat dirty, but they don't show the dirt anywhere near as much. But I did walk around that whole cul-de-sac yesterday at 5 o'clock. And that's why I asked about the power washing. like I
Okay,
said.
what's your opinion of it?
Of what, the whole cul-de-sac?
No, of that building.
The building's dirty, very dirty. And that's why I'm wondering if, and it's dirty, you can see it's dirt up along the top, along the whole top ridge. The walls that the pictures show, there's dirt along the walls. I don't know if that would clean up with power washing or not.
Would you make a motion right now?
No, I
either
don't
way?
think we should be.
I'm asking Robert if he would make a motion.
Well, I would like to, that's why I wanted to know what it would cost to power wash the whole building.
It's $5,000. Just picking a number.
Then I would suggest that we try to power wash it, see how that looks in comparison.
Why would you power wash it again when they power washed it before and it's like this a couple years later? So why go back and power wash it? It needs to be painted. The contractor at the time said it needs to be painted.
Okay, thank you, please. Go ahead.
So I would suggest we try the power washing and see how that works. And if they got 5 years out of the last power washing and you get 5 years out of this power washing, then it'd be in the paint cycle in 2026. If the power washing doesn't work, we can revisit something else.
You got a comment first? Look, here's some things I think that are worthy of saying, and you may agree or disagree. There is no, staff has no cross to bear to turn you down on this, no matter what you may perceive. And hang on now, they may have made mistakes, but I'm simply saying they evaluated it based on our request. And the pictures show a dirty building irrefutably, but I think we can all agree that there are buildings in a lot bigger states of disrepair than a dirty building. So this is a tough call, period. And it's $20,000 to repaint it, but it goes a lot further than that because you're throwing the whole paint cycle, not your fault by any means whatsoever, so let's be clear about that. But as a board, if you were sitting in our chair, you at least got to look at the fact that now one building out of God knows how many will have been painted and would have to separate their paint cycle, or, and this is worthy of discussion, would have to wait 15 more years to get repainted again. So there's a lot going on here, and I just want to make sure you're clear that I'm hearing what Robert's saying, John, we want to make a fair decision here. And I think staff brought us good information that the building could go without painting. I know you're going to kill me for saying that, but it could in the fact that there's not things falling off or falling apart, which many stucco buildings that need that kind of repair, and we have them in the village. So, look at the bigger picture. We need to continue. I think John has a good starting point of a suggestion is that we need to study it further to decide if it, absolutely should be repaired. And some of your things in your request don't seem unreasonable to me. To get a consultant who's independent to say, what does he think? I'm not against that either. But how do we solve the problem of the cycle? that is a big challenge, and if we had an answer that made sense to me on that, I'd be a lot more inclined to go against staff recommendation and say, let's paint it. Does that make any sense to anybody else?
Okay, and let me respond. I don't think we should make a gut decision at this point in time on power washing. It seems to me that we should do a meeting with somebody who knows something about the painting business, and we should look at it and question him, and then make our decisions. And
Against that?
That is exactly what I'm asking for, someone that's a licensed painting professional, not just a staff member, and I appreciate the board member, I know you guys put a lot of time and effort. It's not easy being a board member, not easy taking flack from people like me who get irate at times. But you don't, unless you are a painting professional yourself, you don't have the expertise to even know whether that power washing is going to degrade the paint more, and it's going to, in 2 years' time from now, we'll be back facing the same issue.
Or
And I
worse.
think it would be a good idea to have a licensed professional say, this is what it is, and I'm prepared to accept whatever that person says, if that's an
Do we
objective.
have any of those licensed professionals on staff? Is there anybody carrying that level of a license in our paint community?
That's an outside services, isn't it? Okay.
I have another suggestion of something we might want to think about. It opens up a heck of a can of worms. But if there are 160 buildings that are in third, that are out of sequence, if we revisit the paint cycle and adjust it so that the buildings that are out of cycle get painted and restart the paint cycle in a different way, we might be able to accommodate painting these buildings now, putting them in the 10-year cycle, and move everybody else back, even if they got moved back a year. That might solve the problem overall if we revisit the paint cycle.
Is that viable from where you stand on this?
That would push all the other buildings that are in current 10-year cycle back.
1
So-
year, or 2 years, 1 or 2 years, that's all. Because if you do 80 a year, and we've got 2 years' worth to do, if we painted these now and changed the cycle, painted these buildings in the next 2 years, that would move everybody else back a maximum
Then
of 2 years.
They'll be at the 12-year then.
For them, and then it'd be
Yes.
10 years.
Then everybody be back in the 10-year cycle. That's another, just a thought.
It's a good thought. It's just a one-time nightmare because we had this change in
160
policy over,
buildings.
over 12 or 18 months.
I think it's a very good suggestion, but and the reason I'm a little upset with staff is they don't embrace these good suggestions. 12 years is a lot better than 20 years. Most residents wouldn't even.
And that's why I'm suggesting,
Notice 10 years or 12 years.
and Mr.
But
Gurwitz,
20 years,
that's why I'm suggesting that we
I appreciate
consider
it.
that
I appreciate
as a
it.
way out of this dilemma, rather than just go and paint one building or paint a group of buildings, we adjust the cycle.
Okay, we have
a
several
thought.
different suggestions here.
Well, you say something. You haven't said anything.
I've been listening.
I'm interested in what you think, truly.
Well, I was thinking kind of like what you were thinking too about moving this year's cycle back. But I want to make sure that it doesn't do something in the future that'll exacerbate the situation like we just did.
Yeah, I think we need to look at it.
Okay? Because I remember when a decision was made, we knew there was going to be some falling through the cracks. Okay, but no, nothing was brought to us of this nature, okay? Or we may not have adjusted it. So I think John's got a good idea as far as this particular unit of actually going out and seeing it with somebody who's a licensed person and make a determination on that one, okay? But I think we need a little costing out here.
Well, I would not be, I think that if we single out this building and we bring in a consultant, the consultant says, yes, it needs to be painted, it still doesn't address the issue for the other 159
Exactly.
In the cycle,
buildings
the cycle.
in the
Yeah.
cycle. So I think that I would rather look at the whole paint cycle and see
Yeah.
if there's a way we can adjust the paint cycle so that everybody's treated equally,
Yeah,
as opposed to individuals being treated differently.
okay. In the current paint cycle, do you have any flexibility to add more to it?
The budget is based on the square footage of the buildings that are scheduled for this year. If this is something that the board is looking for us to do, we can definitely look at it and propose it in the 2021 budget and redesign the new 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
I think we need to take a look
Yeah.
at some of the things and make some sense out of it rather than just a quick decision this way.
Exactly.
Because it's a much larger issue.
Yeah. Oh, we can schedule a time where the committee can go out and take a look. That can be done real soon.
Well,
So,
Robert made a good point against that. We don't want to cherry pick a building and then get that out of the cycle.
Because what happens if 2 months from now, another person comes forward and says,
Well, I
I'm out of
understand.
cycle,
Yeah.
and we're right back where we started? I mean, we either treat the people all equally and fairly, and if that means adjusting the paint cycle.
So, Mr. Gerwitz, I'll ask you a question. It is realistic, we would go out of our way to try to make this work for 2021. There are opportunities that we can investigate for starting it earlier, given the cycle of weather. But would you be cooperative with us if we could try to push for that, for your entire area to get repainted? Or should we continue to evaluate it based on sooner for you and not focused on the entire area? Which is your preference?
I understand what I think Robert talks about, the greater issue of somebody else coming after me, and then you face the same decision. So I'm prepared to work with the board as long as the board shows a good faith effort in trying to resolve this for I'm a member here too. I'm not just an outside person living in this community.
Absolutely.
I'm also a CPA, so I understand budgets. There have been some good suggestions made here. There are ways to interface this and shift the paint cycle, much as staff is against it, but what I cannot actually comprehend. And if somebody is on a 10-year cycle and they get painted 11 years from now instead of 10 years, whether they actually going to they're going to make a difference. But it does make a difference.
Okay.
You can see.
Well, we appreciate
But
you being
would-
open-minded
As
to
long
that.
as this committee.
We'd like
which
to study
obviously
it quickly, efficiently, and so I would make a motion, I don't know if you need a motion, to direct staff to find an answer that present to us what it would take to adjust the paint cycles to allow a schedule that works cul-de-sac by cul-de-sac as opposed to.
over the next,
Right. I mean, bring us the best you got. Is it 11-year cycle? Is it a 12-year cycle? How do you fit these people who are overlooked in to our existing cycle and move it forward all as one, is my question.
Would you like us to bring that back to the next meeting?
can it be done that fast?
Well, the next meeting is May 4th, so yes, we
Oh.
can.
We shouldn't wait a month to solve this. We should come up
Well,
with a decision
it's 2
today.
months.
We cannot come up with a decision
And
today.
not, I don't mean today,
Yeah.
but in this
Yeah.
issue now, within the
Okay.
next week or so.
Is there a second to the
I
motion?
would just like to offer something, since I am a CPA, if they need help a little bit on the financial side, I'd be happy to help them after April 15th at no cost to the staff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you read back the motion?
The motion was to bring back costs on how we can budget for and schedule the buildings that were on the trim cycle to be painted in the next 2 years to get them up to date, while moving the other buildings on the 10-year paint cycle out 1 or 2 years, and how that affects everything. So come back with the
Okay.
cost and the schedule.
But your trim cycle does not only cover these, right?
The trim cycle is for however long it was, for whether it's 12 months, 18 months, however many buildings are there, 100 buildings, 180 buildings, however many buildings were on the trim cycle, that's what you want us
Oh,
to
back
come
then.
back and paint.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
from
okay.
2015 and 2016.
I got you.
And moving them up to be painted starting maybe 2021 and 2022, and then how that moves the rest of the buildings on the paint schedule.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Okay,
Discussion?
yep.
Why should we put this off a month? Why can't we make a decision on this circumstance within the next week or so?
We've already discussed that. Because then you'd be
Well,
having
no, I'm
different
saying the
people coming
motion-
in all the time.
I know we've discussed it, and the motion will be for staff to come back to us at the next meeting, at the next M&C meeting. It seems to me that we're procrastinating. We ought to be able to make a decision on this circumstance now.
Well, if we vote this down, what's your motion then?
My motion would be, if I were to make a motion, I can't now because I'd have to
Right, but
amend it.
just so we can
is
evaluate it.
That we go visit the site and then meet with staff. After all, we have painting experts on board. We don't have to hire a consultant. And let's talk about this and then make the best decision. Engineers, and I'm an engineer, that's how you make decisions. You gather all the information and you make a decision. And we haven't got an input of information to make a decision.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the original motion? Opposed? Okay. So we'll proceed with that. Okay, does that help you?
Thank you, Mr. Gervitz, and others. And I have a card for you up here when you get a chance.
Thanks for being understanding about the larger.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Use the phone number, not the email.
Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed on to item 12, Building 3244, ramp request.
Staff is looking for a recommendation to approve the reconstruction of the first floor entrance, and that is to eliminate the step up to the lobby by making it a ramp to allow for ADA accessible ramp. The cost estimate that staff has provided is $5,000, and it is allocated under the fund for concrete work associated to the paving program. So this will be fully funded.
We have two speakers on this item.
Okay?
The first speaker is Randy Scott.
Ah. Is it your building?
No, it's one of the buildings. I'm the first vice president on the Garden Villa. We have 10 buildings that we kind of work with, each of us. So this is one of the buildings. And this came up, just to be clear, the reason for this particular ramp is several of the residents in the building get physical rehab services. So the trucks, the vehicles they use to pick them up are taller. They won't go into the garage, in the parking garage. So that's why they got to use that front ramp or the front entrance there in doing that. So and I wanted to thank the committee for pursuing this and moving forward with this. It's really, I think it's a good thing. The only question I really have is, I was reading the recommendation, if there would be a handrail involved when they do that, on the one side. I think that would be helpful, because there is a bit of a slope on 3244. I don't know how much of a degree, maybe like a 5 or 6 degree slope down. And a handrail would be good, but...
A handrail is driven by the grade, and that certainly would not require a handrail because we have a long ways, a long grade.
Okay, I just wanted to see if it was required or not. I know the one building is flat, and it's really flat. There's a bit of a grade, but it's not that much. But just want to thank the committee for pursuing this, and I think it's something that would really be needed, especially because these vehicles cannot get into the parking garage.
How many people are affected by it?
Well, right now, there's 3 individuals that are getting rehab services from that building. And so that could change, it could go more or less, but that right now is what they need.
Okay,
Go ahead.
go
I'm going to make a motion to follow staff recommendation.
I'll second.
And I have a
Can I ask a
comment.
question about it?
I do
The
too.
staff recommendation is, as I understand, is to build a ramp.
Can't hear you.
The reconstruct the first floor entrance walkway,
Yeah.
it says.
Is it reconstructed, is that to then to actually take out that step and make it level? Is that really what it amounts to?
slope
All right,
down.
slope
So
it
that
down.
it slopes downward rather than build?
Yes.
That's fine, okay. that
It'll be a
answers it.
gradual grade.
That's fine, that answers it. Thank you.
John?
Wait, we have one more speaker.
Oh, just get a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and talk us out of it, Lynn.
I, just to be honest with everybody, and I love Randy, a good friend, and a coworker, so to speak, our volunteer work. The thing about it is all about precedents. Precedents. The precedent they show here went back to 2011. That's 9 years ago. During the period of time that I was Garden Villa president for 4 years, I had several requests from people, particularly in Gate 5, who wanted to have this ramp, a similar ramp. I talked to Ernesto about it, and, got his input when he came on board. And well, and a few of the places that were asking for it, it was too much of a grade, so they couldn't do it. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of people want this. And one time, and they're going to see another building. People in these buildings, we all visit each other. And they see something like this, and it's going to be nice, it's going to be wonderful, and it's needed in a lot of buildings. Every building has this situation where they have people that have their buses or whatever come and pick them up. So that's why I'm saying I want you to think about the precedent you're setting for this one particular building, because you're going to have a lot of people, if you approve this, come forward for the same request, because my building has that same step. They're all built, most of them are built that way. So you got a decision on your hands. Thank you.
You want to make a comment?
Well, let me, if I can ask a question then, since the motion's on the floor, and this is for Randy, really, the question. You said that the people, the vehicle can't pick them up in the garage, right? So they have to come out the front of the building, go down this long walkway outside, right?
Right.
As opposed to going down the elevator and going a shorter distance out the garage to where the van could pick them up. So this is a longer route for these people than it would be to go down the elevator and out the garage.
In some cases, I think, it depends on the diagram and the building, but some of the buildings, yeah, it would be.
I'm looking at this picture of this
Right.
building, and the way this walkway goes, and the amount of distance that they would have to travel outside in all weather, as opposed to going down the elevator and to the edge of the garage, which to me would be shorter distance and covered, as opposed to doing this repair and outside. Is that correct?
The distance would be shorter for this building, yeah, it would be shorter. Now, that particular building has two other buildings with.
I'm looking at this request in this
Right,
building.
yeah, for that building there, yeah.
And it would be covered if they went downstairs through the,
Right.
as opposed to being outside.
Except they would have to go from the garage and have to go a bit uphill to get to the vehicle.
Well, the vehicle could pull to the garage entrance.
Yeah, this
He
building,
could.
they can get pretty close.
Yeah, he could pull to the garage entrance.
They can get close to it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on it?
I would ask, I guess, Melanie, I mean, in response to what Director Jarrett pointed out, can we identify what the potential costs might be? I'd love to get some handle on how many buildings, is it the number of garden villas times 5,000? Is that what's still left to go on this? Is there one, there's one that's done, I saw the picture. So I'm just trying to get a feel for, because this is starting to sound like maybe it should be a project.
Yeah.
If it's an ADA thing, maybe it should be a project that would be developed over time. So if people come requesting it, we could build a budget over years and do it over years versus reacting one by one. But this one here, seems, it seems necessary at some level. But I guess before we dive in, as Lynn's cautioning, we don't want to inherit a six-figure thing that we have to do over 12 or 24 months.
There are 53 garden villas, and although this particular ramp is going to be 5,000, not all of them would be as simple as just reconstructing the one step. Some of them have multiple steps, and depending on where they're located,
Will some not need it at all, though, or some already
some will
flush?
not need it at all because, yes.
Where maybe you just can't solve it with a ramp, or you'd have to use an arm rail, like John was saying.
Correct.
I'd like to add one more point that's very important, super important in this particular case here. You have here about being ADA compliant. If you make one building ADA compliant the way you have it in this recommendation, they're all going to have to be ADA compliant from then on.
Then why didn't that happen in 2011?
Well, maybe they had different rules and laws that said.
I don't think so.
But, well, I'm telling you, I can tell you, you better be careful about saying.
Oh, no, I think it's a great point.
Something's going to be ADA
ADA's been
compliant.
around quite a while now, though. That's all I'm saying.
So that's something to look into.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the takeaway I'm starting to hear is this maybe is worthy of a study. You know, coming back with a staff report on what we're faced with here and what the ADA implications are of approving it.
I would agree 100% with Lynn, that if we make this building ADA compliant, we have to do them all. So therefore, we need staff to come back to us and tell us how many buildings there are and what the cost would be to make them all ADA compliant. In other words, some of them have more than one step.
Hi, I'm Stuart Hack, 2393 3D, and president of the GVA Association. So there's another way that this has been done in the past, and that is it's been granted, the authority has been granted for a resident of a building to create a ramp. So that's another way of going with this. And so I agree with you, John. I think this needs to be studied. It's not going to go away. There has to be a one-fits-all solution so that we don't have all these alternatives floating around.
Right, and I'd feel uncomfortable on the resident doing it, although it may have happened in the past, just because they're building on our property, so it's kind of like we're going to be responsible for whatever construction they do. So,
Lynn, this is not the first one we've done. We did one at the par 3 course of the entrance to the building. We did the entire entryway,
2404.
and it was a significant issue. So I know we've done at least one other one. You remember that project? I do.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor right now?
I motion to approve staff recommendation.
Okay, you want to hold with that? Or withdraw it, or what, modify it?
Somebody could amend it. Somebody.
All right, I'll move to amend that instead of the motion as it currently exists, that we ask staff to ascertain for purposes of future consideration, how many villas, what the needs are at each of the villas, which ones don't need it, and what the approximate cost of the different kinds of needs are.
And all.
So that we get a total budget.
All ADA ramifications
Yeah.
too.
I'll second your amendment.
And the ADA ramifications that might
That's
be
a
involved.
biggie. What do we
Yeah, just to let you
require?
know that, for staff to go out and inspect the other 51 buildings and draw diagrams, check slopes, ratios, things like that, make sure it's ADA compliant, it will take several months. So it won't come back to the May meeting. It may come back to
We
the
understand.
July meeting. It
That's
could come,
fine.
It'll be a while before we
We
bring
put
this
it on
topic back.
future agenda then.
Yes.
I do want to add to that in regards to the ADA. Once you approach that you're making a building ADA, we're going to broach into the rec rooms, which are not ADA compliant.
I'm sorry.
So have we already triggered this with the work we did at 2404 in 2011 is the question? Or maybe other things we've done with people doing their own ramps. I mean, we have to get a handle on where we are.
I guess we need to know what the situation is
Right.
first.
Yeah, the other ramps were for exclusive use to just directly to their manor door, not to a common area like this. You can't have a resident build into the common area because it's not exclusive use. Right.
No, that's not how it was. 'Cause I walk by the ramp almost every day, and I read exactly what was done. And the ramp that goes right up into the main entrance to the building.
You talking about the
Not by
one at the par
residents.
3?
Paper. I was talking about where you're saying that the resident can pay to have it done.
The
Residents-
resident paid to have this done. It's a ramp that goes right up to the entrance of the building, and the resident paid to have it done.
Well, let me answer that, because that's already gone to our lawyer before on some other potential projects where the resident would pay for it and then turn it over to the association. We can't do that.
Right. I mean,
That's
this
off the table
just
now.
drives home the motion. We need to get a good handle. I don't care if it takes 6 months. Let's
So we
get a
need a
handle. of what-
second to my amendment.
I'll second it.
I already seconded.
Oh, you did. John Franklin did.
John Frankel seconded.
Now a comment, and that is a real thorough report. I mean, this is playing big games here. If you start messing with these buildings and trigger ADA requirements, we want to know where we stand.
Especially if it's a project.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Can we read back the amended motion?
The motion was made for staff to inspect the remaining 51 Garden Villa buildings and bring back a thorough report addressing which buildings will qualify for an ADA ramp to the entry building, and if that ADA repair triggers any other ADA repairs on the building.
Okay?
I would alter that to all ADA ramifications because I'm curious if we're required to even do it for ADA. In other words, I don't like the idea that we're making a modification for the benefit of ADA when that's not really what's happening here. This
That
is,
we're not required to make it.
right, exactly. I just want to hear all of it.
That's
It's
right.
like
If
we
we're
don't
not
have to on some,
required-
we can on others,
Yeah.
all the
We're
ups
not
and downs.
required to be ADA compliant, but if you do a modification, it has to be ADA compliant. Correct. But you can't just build a ramp and it not meet ADA, but you don't have to do it at all.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll see what it looks like.
So all in favor of the amended motion? Okay. Now back to the original motion.
That
Can
is
you
the original
restate
motion
the
now.
motion?
Now with the amendment.
Now with the amendment. We have to do that.
In committees, you don't have to, so that amended motion becomes just the motion.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we're good on that. All right, we want to add that to future agendas also?
Yes, I have added it.
Okay. And are there any other things for future agendas? Okay. One other thing on independent EV charging station bollards. When do we expect a plan? Even if it's just a rough plan? Is that a couple months or 4 months down the road?
I have began working on this for both United and Third Mutual. We have a decision to make. Would you like to address the current needs, which are very, very small, or would you like to look at a program for over the course of 10 years where we should locate these EV chargers? Right now, our utilization rate of EV vehicles is approximately 0.6% throughout the community. So with this current need, it just wouldn't justify spending any
However,
money.
on 2022, Ford is only going to make 2 gas vehicles, 2 cars, okay? And that's going to speed up the acceleration of that.
Sure.
Okay.
So I could look at currently what we have, or I can look at, taking a compass, saying I don't want any member of Third Mutual to be within, more than a half mile. And kind of just make circles around and find nice little locations. I did speak with United last week. Overwhelmingly, this project would be easier if GRF, United, and Third Mutual were all working together. Setting these stations up at the clubhouses, very easy to do compared to United or Thirds. It's much more challenging. You have parking issues that are a problem. Several of the locations that we have found are literally across the street from, for example, Clubhouse 5. I drew a triangle. I found all your cul-de-sacs with the most number of EV vehicles. And then I made a triangle, and then Clubhouse 5 was in the middle. And I go, well, we could do it across the street, but anyone who looks at it is going to say, wow, this looks kind of silly.
Well, let me help you out a little bit. Last meeting I was in with Ernesto, myself, and a representative from the Energy Committee. And we decided that all 3 needed to come together to formulate a plan.
Sure.
And part of it is, where are we going to site future golf cart spots? Where are we going to look at additional automobile parking, parking slots? And then look at charging stations on top of it. How will it work the best? Where are you in this process? Or did Ernesto talk to you about it?
I have not had that conversation with Ernesto
Oh,
yet.
okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, it's not going to be an immediate thing, but I would think we definitely need to look at 5 to 6 years.
5 to 6 years. And then, any plan that we do make will change.
Oh, yeah.
If
Sure.
SCIP
Sure,
comes
sure.
in, we can get another rebate.
Sure.
We're going to go after that.
Oh, exactly.
If something happens and the adoption rate skyrockets.
Yes, I think Ernesto's
It's gonna
kind of
be
got
a
a little
very
bit of a
rough
plan
plan.
in his head. Not so
Okay.
sure he's put it on paper. But then he told me too, another thing is how do you handle the convenience aspect of this, or the proximity, between one vehicle and another? So anyway, it's not going to be a quick thing. Okay, I just didn't know where you were on that plan.
We're still deciding. If you wanted to look at the short term, I could start setting up a few ideas for short-term solutions. If you're really going to invest the money, I really think you should really focus on.
No, we're not
Yeah.
spending it, we're saving it.
Saving
Because we think the need's going to hit us down the road.
Well, if you're planning on investing into it.
Yeah.
So,
So it sounds like a plan is in its infancy, probably couldn't generate anything 4 to 6 months. Sounds like. What do you think?
Well, like Chris said, we can bring back a plan if you want for a few new stations to come up in third and be part of the 2021 budget, because we're going to be talking about that, in June,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So if you want something short just for 1 or 2 stations to be added next year, we can certainly do that. But if you want
We're
us to do
looking in
a
phases,
long-range plan, we may not have anything ready by the time you make a decision for the 2021 budget.
Okay. Maybe if you could do a straw man then for the next year,
sure.
and then we can look at it in anticipation of the budget.
I'm going to literally locate the cul-de-sacs with the most number of EV chargers. I'm going to do single station, dual port bollards.
You want us to provide a status update at the upcoming May meeting, because that's right before the budget talks, and you can give some preliminary numbers
good
and see if
idea.
you want to just throw some money at the budget for 2021 without any hard numbers, but preliminary numbers.
Yeah, at least it'll let us know what you're thinking.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
we'll put that on the agenda for the May
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, great.
Could I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Is there a status on increasing the cycle of the dryers?
Yeah, it's on the agenda. I asked about it for the meeting, so we'll have that analyzed in May.
Okay, thank you.
That's big. I
That's
was
a big
about
one.
to say to these guys, make sure
Yeah.
that comes before the EV stations. That's much higher priority.
Thank you.
Yeah, no question.
Okay, if there's no other items for future agendas, we'll go around. Committee comments?
Well, thank you.
John? John? Okay. Either one of you? Okay. Don't have anything else. Thanks for coming and appreciate your comments.